Hey everybody, welcome to supplementary video 18.1 to 18.4. So there's four different sections that are going to be covered here in this video, but they're going to be pretty quick synopses. A lot of this that is actually covered in those four sections is actually going to be included in the high school portion of the class here. So a couple of things to remember though, because we are dealing with cells and cell lineages, to remember the different levels of differentiation from stem cells. So you're always going to start as a totipotent stem cell. That's going to be that first cell that has the ability to become anything. Then after that, your next level down, you have the pluripotent, which are going to be able to give rise to multiple types of cells. You have mesenchymal cells that are going to be giving rise to blood specifically as you work down those levels of differentiation. You have hematopoietic stem cells that are going to give rise to the formed elements, so erythrocytes, leukocytes, and platelets. EPO is a hormone that's going to stimulate the production of erythrocytes. Uh, um, and stem cells generally are going to be found in the red marrow of bones when we're dealing with these different formed elements here. So erythrocytes or red blood cells, they are going to actually not be full cells. Once they mature, they're going to remove their nucleus and a lot of the mitochondria and all their other organelles because they don't have those mitochondria. They don't need oxygen for cell respiration, so they can actually make sure they're focused on carrying and delivering oxygen instead of using it themselves. A red blood cell is going to be made of about 300 million hemoglobin molecules, which is going to be a heme pigment with four globin proteins bound around it. And so that heme pigment has an iron at the center, which has the ability to bind to oxygen in a 1-to-1 ratio. And so if you have 300 million hemoglobin molecules in one red blood cell, that means and four globin proteins built around it, you're going to be able to carry about 1.2 billion oxygen atoms on each red blood cell. Erythrocytes are able to survive about 120 days within the body before they end up being degraded by a macrophage. And so that macrophage is basically going to tear them apart. Some of it will get lost as will get sent to the liver for the production of bile. Others will get other parts of them will get recycled to form a new generation of erythrocytes. Fun fact about this here, bruises have that nice yellow and green color that they do because of damage to erythrocytes being broken down from whatever the impact was. And so bile is actually a yellow digestive system enzyme. If those erythrocytes are damaged and break down, they'll become a precursor of bile, and that's going to be contributing that yellow and green color. A low number of erythrocytes is called anemia. There's many, many different types of anemia with all sorts of different causes. So generally just a low number of them causing some sort of lack of oxygen delivery is going to be a general anemia. They can be caused things like if you don't have enough erythrocytes because you lost a bunch of blood. Maybe you have some sort of disease or autoimmune disease that's causing your body to destroy red blood cells. Maybe you don't have enough iron in your body, and so you can't create hemoglobin, which means you can't create red blood cells. You kind of see there's all sorts of different ways that can contribute this. But generally, somebody that is anemic, they're going to have fatigue, confusion because they aren't getting oxygen to the brain, and they're going to be very lethargic, meaning they really don't want to move or they don't seem to have the motivation to move. It could be because of anemia. Leukocytes, these are going to be your white blood cells. They can come in two classifications, your granular and agranular. The granular leukocytes are your neutrophils, eosinophils, and your basophils. Neutrophils get their name because you have to stain them in a neutral pH stain in order to be able to see their grains. Granular meaning when you stain them, they have grains. Neutrophils are going to be responsible for responding to infection, and they're very good at phagocytizing or eating basically bacteria. Eosinophils are going to show up with a stain called eosin, and they're going to have granules that contain antihistamines, which are going to basically be the opposite of what's contained in basophils, which are histamines. Basophils show up in a basic pH stain, but both of these are going to be associated heavily with the allergic response. Agranular is going to be your monocytes and your lymphocytes. Monocytes become macrophages, which means they're going to be eating or phagocytizing many different things. Lymphocytes, you have your natural killer or your NK cells, B cells, and T cells. So your natural killer cells, they're going to be responsible for identifying foreign cells in a very general sense. Kind of, they'll be floating around, reading the ID tags on these different cells. If something is foreign, they're going to say something about it. B cells are going to do the same thing, but they're going to be looking for specific foreign cells, and T cells are going to be responsible for attacking those foreign cells. Another type of lymphocyte, your memory cell, is a type of B and T cell, excuse me, that's going to remember a specific pathogen, hence the memory, to recognize it faster in the future. And that's what vaccines take advantage of is with like a flu vaccine, it's introducing a dead flu viral particle into the body so that your cells can recognize it, create memory cells so that the next time you come into contact with that particular flu virus, your body recognizes it faster and can generate a response faster. Okay. That's also why you need a new flu vaccine every year, is because that flu vaccine mutates and is different enough that those memory cells would not remember it in the future. Other vaccines like the COVID vaccine, which is an mRNA vaccine, gives you the mRNA for your body to create a spike protein, which is foreign. And so your body is going to recognize that and create memory cells for the next time you come into contact with COVID. It's got these memory cells all over that are going to recognize it faster, and you can generate a response faster. Yep. And so I skipped over this. Here's just a picture of the neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils. You're not going to need to identify the lobes or the granules of them. I just included this picture from the textbook. So that's a quick look at some of these formed elements. I didn't include anything on platelets. We'll talk about them more in video 18.5 when we talk about hemostasis.